Over 1 million teachers use iExcel in their classrooms every day for one reason. They love it. Why? iExcel is where the magic happens. With just one platform, teachers can personalize learning for every student. iExcel gives teachers all the tools they need to enhance and differentiate instruction without adding work to their plates. Plus, iExcel has decades of expertise and has proven to be effective. Studies on more than 70,000 schools across nearly 50 states show that those who use iExcel outperform others on state tests. Ready to bring the magic to your school? Visit iexcel.com/PM to learn more.
You're listening to Monday Matters, a Principal Matters podcast production.
Hi, everyone. Monday Matters of Principal Matters podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Will Parker. Hi, Will.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for being with me today. And I think we're recording this one again at the... It's May.
May, yeah.
May. And you know what? Missy's the one that coined this term for me. She calls this May-cember.
Right.
It is just crazy how busy principals are.
There's so much going on because you're doing 2 school years at once, right? You are closing out a school year and you are already thinking about the new one, and everyone you're working with is really, really excited for summer, and you can't even begin to let yourself think that. So you have in the past talked about some tips, some tricks, some strategies for closing out the school year. And so I know you've been kind of revamping some of your ideas about this. So why don't you kind of lead us down? I think you've got 5 points that you might want to make about wrapping up a school year. So why don't you take it away?
I'll do it, Jen. And these are some conversations I've been having recently with some of the groups I work with. And I've just thought, let me pull out some of those things that I've seen really be helpful for principals that were also really helpful in my own practice. And I'm really eager to hear your thoughts too, because, I led at a secondary level and you've led at every level. So I'm just really curious how these work across those different levels. But the question people always ask principals as they're getting ready to step into summer, which is like, what are you going to do with all your time off? And then you just laugh so I always struggled with the analogy so I finally started telling someone, have you ever wondered what happens to a cruise ship when it empties before the next voyage? And they're like, yeah, I bet they have to do a lot of stuff. And I'm like, so do schools. And so, principals usually spend their summers just working really hard to get everything ready for the next. And I know that doesn't mean you don't have time off, but there's this weird common assumption among non-educators that summer's just this lean back and rest time. But what you're doing right now in May is not only wrapping up that school year, but preparing you for that next leg too. So Jen mentioned that I've got 5 tips. I'm going to start with the first one. If you don't already have a working list of things to do and things that have to be done before the beginning of the next year, I didn't do a brain dump because it's always been helpful for me. I know some people like to do this by calendars, but I just would have a running list of reports due, schedules that have to be reworked, people or positions that still need to be hired, budgets that still have to be approved, purchases that have to be made, communications that need to be written, all those things that have to happen as you're wrapping up, but also as you're looking forward. So if you do this right, these are practices and lists that you can revisit from year to year too. And I'll add this thought too, Jen, that in the office, our front office secretary also kept her own end of the year list of just all those things teachers have to do in classrooms or with grades or with materials or with keys or with, that list too. So we would keep a running list of to-dos, but also a running checklist of things people can check off. One other list that it was helpful for us too, we created a last 30-day calendar to just kind of be able to glance up and see all of the events that were going to be happening over the next, the last 30 days of school, because man, you're just so busy. Right. And it kind of kept everything in perspective.
By the way, on my list, I had one like that, and I would put things, I had the list that everybody else looked at, but I cross-checked it with my own list that said things, like in mid-February, like call the tax lady. Because things get so busy, often you forget things you have to take care of in your own life too. So
that's so smart. Okay, thing number 2, share responsibilities. I mean, I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but part of the temptation you have when things get really busy is to hunker your down, put your head down and just work by yourself because you don't want to bother anybody else. But the truth is that when your team knows what has to be done, they're more likely to jump in and help. And so I had to really learn, Jen, that posture of humility to just sit down with my team and say, man, I'm overwhelmed. Here's our list. Is there anything you could do to help? And every single time they did, they'd be like, yep, I can take that. I can take that. Give that to me. And then it freed me up to do the things only I could do, especially as you're wrapping up the year. If you're a secondary person that's holding an end of year assembly, or maybe you're doing a graduation ceremony, there's a lot of other things you should be working on. So give people a chance to look at the list, to know their roles, to share those documents. We would even take our end of year to-dos as a shared Google Doc and share it among all of our office staff. So you could check things off too as you got them done. And that way you didn't have to be in the same room to know if somebody got something done. So be intentional about sharing those responsibilities.
And this is where I swoop in with a little plug for being trust willing. Trust those other people to do it. Let them do it. Get out of their way. When they say, I got it, they probably got it.
Yeah. All right. Thing 3, adjust your pace and protect your energy. If Jen, you and I both like to run, and you run much longer distances than I do, but even in the distances that I run, I've got to pace myself. And it's okay when you're seeing that finish line to don't start sprinting, not yet. It's just to keep the pace, and keep a sense. I always try to tell principals, keep a sensible schedule where you can too, because you're going to be asked to do more than you normally will. And you're going to feel really guilty that maybe you didn't get to do this longer morning workout, or you didn't get to eat the nutritious lunch that you wanted to. Well, do it where you can. So maybe I'll just use running. Maybe you're a 5-miler, but you can do a mile and a half, and it's not the end of the world. So keep a sensible schedule where you can, and consider how you might adjust your schedules to create more focused time for, wrapping up, and space some time for recovery. And then as you're stepping into summer, I know I don't want to like paint the picture already too clearly, because you're still in the middle of it, but you're going to need some time to recharge. And so, so part of that pace and protecting energy is also targeting some times on that calendar where you're going to just take a break after this is over, and then committing to doing that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Great idea. It's about being sensible, right? And balance. This is a job with fits and starts. And so you just have to keep that in mind, balance it.
Well, number 4 is going to sound like a repetition of an earlier one, but I want to come back to this. Collaborate on the work that matters most. You've got some really big decisions to do sometimes that require hard decisions, like staffing and master scheduling, or program decisions. And you will make better decisions if you invite people you trust to those conversations. You just will. And I know you feel like you're protecting others when you're like, I'll just do it. I'll just figure it out and do it. I'll give you an example. At the high school level, when we were preparing for graduation, we always knew we were going to have student speakers. And I would schedule days with my student leaders that were going to be speaking, and we would all bring a laptop, open up, and they would take their scripts or their speeches, and we would put them on a shared Google Doc, and we would look at them together, talk about them together. I would ask questions. So we were collaborating long before the event. And then the day before the event, we would get together, and I would actually have them practice with me standing there to give them feedback and pointers and encourage them. So by the time we were at the moment, we'd spent a lot of time together already, and they felt really good about it. And I wasn't surprised. I felt really good about it too. And that's just one example, Jen. The same thing can apply to staffing, to master schedules, to budgets. But invite others in, because when you invite others in, you're usually going to have a better product.
Right, right. And while high school colleagues are thinking about graduation, at middle and elementary, there's usually a lot of end of year celebrations, and those things do not happen in a vacuum. There are usually a lot of people involved, a lot of moving parts. And so getting together in a room and saying, okay, what is it that we haven't thought about? What's the plan? What's the schedule? Who needs to know? Can be hugely helpful when you have that collaboration.
Yeah. Okay. Last point is make rest part of the plan. It's tempting to treat rest as something you'll get to later. So just, you might need to take a nap. I think I've told you the funny story of my former principal. Her name was Donna. When I was her AP, one of her APs, on Friday nights before football games, she would be like, I'll see you at the game, but I'm going to take a nap. She'd go to the nurse's office and she would just shut the door and she would sleep. And I used to think it was so funny until I was in her role. And then I was like, where's that nurse's office?
Right.
So give yourself permission to just rest every once in a while when you can. And as you plan the end of the semester and you think about summer, give yourself permission to just schedule recharge time for you. Don't feel guilty by unplugging. I had a friend who was a principal and later a director, Jen. She had a very similar role to what you have now. And she and her husband always went on cruises in the summer, not just because they loved cruises, but because it was the place that she could be completely away from her phone. And back in those days, I don't know if it's still the way on cruise ships now, but you couldn't reach somebody on a cruise ship. And so she went on cruises so that she could completely unplug. No excuses. You just couldn't get a hold of her.
Right.
So I'm sure they could call a ship if there's a family emergency. But.
Right. Well, and that's what I was going to say. This will be no surprise to you. I'm the world's worst sleeper. I couldn't nap if you gave me $100 to try. Cannot do it. So you have to find what rest means for you. Rest for me is sometimes, believe it or not, it's taking a walk, or it is reading something that has nothing to do with education. It is calling my mom. It is listening to Simon and Garfunkel, which I first heard in 1975 or whatever it was. So do something that gives the brain a break from the work, whatever rest looks like to you.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, Jen, I just want to say to leaders, there will most likely be things on your list that don't get done. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm laughing because I can visualize where I used to stand in the mornings as a principal, and I always had kind of this clipboard with things I wanted to get done. And then I had this place where I kept like reports or letters or other things that it came in that I would put on the bottom of the stack if I have time, I'll get to it. But the things on the top were the things that I was going to try to hit as immediately as I could. And it was always so funny at the end of the year when I would go back to that stack and find how many things stayed at the bottom that never needed my attention. They just didn't. And it was okay that we never got there because you're constantly being asked to do more than you're going to be able to do. And leadership involves figuring out what's the priority. But let me say this as we wrap up too, Jen. You've had a whole year, listeners, of accomplishing learning. So congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. You've already led through a full year of challenges and successes. And so the wrapping up of the year is just your opportunity to finish as strong as you can with that pace that you got. And so just keep those things in mind. I'm going to say them one more time, Jen. Create a working list that you can return to year. Be intentional about sharing responsibilities, adjust your pace, protect your energy, collaborate on the work that matters most, and then make rest a part of your plan. If not now, at least at some point in the future.
Right. And it's easier to make a plan about rest if you do the other 4.
Yes, it is. Well, Jen, thank you for letting me reflect on this with you. And Principal Matters listeners, as you step into a Monday, I hope that you recognize that I know in some ways it's weird to hear me sitting in the wings as a former principal saying these things, but I'm saying them because I get to be in the room with so many principals that have been collaborating with me around these same priorities. So just keep your focus. Thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing because what you do matters. Jen, how can folks stay connected with your resources?
Yep, absolutely. They can find me at jenschwanke.com, and there they will find a way to get a hold of me or a place to subscribe to my newsletter. And Will, you have a fantastic website too. Where can they find you?
You can find all of these resources, and I'll share this today's post on the website as well at williamdparker.com.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Monday Matters.